Okay, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make two items for your mod. The first item will be a very simple item. It will have simply an icon and it will set the max stack size. The second item is going to show you how to have extra logic when you click on things or you use the item. Okay, so to get started, open up your project inside of Visual Studio Code. The first thing you're going to do is open up the source directory and make a new folder called items. Inside of this folder, create a new file, call it moditems.hpp, and make another file called moditems.cpp. To make these files show up inside of Visual Studio, we need to run a command. Open up terminal, new terminal, and then we can type out the command xmake project-k vsxmake-m quote release quote. Once it says create OK, back inside of Visual Studio, hit reload all, and now you can see these folders up here. Inside of moditems.hpp, first let's add pragma once, and let's create a new class. Let's call it mod items. Inside of mod items, let's add a public function, static void register items. And so for this, we need to hook into the Amethyst event system. For this, let's do include amethyst/runtime/events/register events. If we open up this header, we can see the register items event. This is the one that we're going to use to register. Copy this, go back to mod items H++, and let's pass in this event to this function. And let's make it a reference and call it EV. Hover over this, go potential fixes, and let's write a definition inside of mod items.c++. Add a log info for this function. We'll need to include amethyst log, amethyst/log, and let's just print register mod items. Now, to actually hook up this function, we need to go back to dll-main.c++. For now, let's get rid of all of this placeholder stuff. Make sure you do not get rid of this line here, and let's remove this function here. First thing you want to do is do amethyst event bus reference bus equals amethyst get event bus. Now we can do bus.add listener. We want to use the register items event, and let's quickly include our new mod items file. Go to include items/mod items. And now we want to do a reference to mod items register items. So now we've added listener to the amethyst event bus for this function to run whenever it registers the items. So it's just out, let's build the mod using Ctrl+Shift+E or press build up here and go build solution. Once your mod is finished building, open up Minecraft and then it will ask you to select a debugger. Just hit tutorial mod and then let's join a test world here. If you look in the console on the left, you can see that it printed register mod item, but you can see that it's actually printed it twice. That's because the first time it's running on the server side and the second time it's registering them on the client. So actually register our items, minimize Minecraft for now. Let's go back into our mod items H++. Let's open up the function. To actually register an item, inside of the register items event, it has a reference to the item registry. So let's add an include for the item registry in our project here. Include Minecraft/source common world item registry. Inside of this, we can do ev.itemregistry.register item shared. This is the function that will register any item. And for now, let's register using the base class item. This is the Minecraft's most simple type of item. If we scroll down to the constructor, to construct the item, we need to first pass in the identifier that we want to use. And then afterwards, we need to pass in a numerical ID. The identifier, first part of your identifier needs to be the namespace that you registered in your mod.json file. In my case, it's tutorial_mod. Copy this. If we go back to mod items, pass in the arguments to construct item. We need to put our namespace followed by a colon and then the name of our item. In my case, let's do example_item and then just get the next numerical ID that we need to use. We can do ev.itemregistry.mmaxItemID++, and then that will register an item. Let's add an icon to our item. Let's do auto example item. Let's just assign that to that. And then off of here, let's do an arrow set icon info. The first parameter is the icon name. I'll show you how to create a custom one later on, but for now, let's just use a Minecraft diamond. For that, just type in diamond and then the icon frame. If you have an animated icon, it would be the frame that you want to have starting as. In our case, diamond is not an animated icon, so we can just pass in 0 for the first frame. Let's also set the max stack size to 16. Set max stack size 16. We build the mod. If it asks us to stop debugging, just press yes. And then whilst that's building, let's leave the world inside of Minecraft. Once it's finished building, we can go into the console. If you click here and then press R on your keyboard, it will reload the mod and then select the debugger and now reload your world. If you now go into your inventory and scroll all the way down, you'll now see your item. If we take a stack, we can see that it's got the max stack size of 16. When you hover over the item, you may notice it doesn't have a name yet. Open your project in Visual Studio Code, go Data, Packs, RP, Text, enus.lang. This is the language file for English. If you want to support multiple languages, you can create multiple lang files. We look at the item in the inventory. We want to copy this string here and put it into our lang file. So item.tutorial_mod example item.name equals example item. This part of the string here is the one that you registered here. And then to give it a name, just use equals and then put what you want it to be. Now to build your resource pack, go terminal, new terminal, cd data, rgl watch. This command will automatically build your resource pack whenever you make a change. So if I were to make a change, save the file, it will auto rebuild. Now to see our changes in the resource pack, just leave the world and rejoin. If we now hover over the item, we can see it now has a name. Now let's make a more complex item. At the moment, this item doesn't really have any logic to it, but we can make a more complex item. To do this, let's stop debugging and let's make a new class. Let's make example item 2. And we want to make this class extend the class item, public item. Make this, let's add a constructor, and we also need to pass in an identifier and the numerical ID. Let's pass these to the base constructor and let's just leave the constructor empty. Mark this as public as well. So to add logic to our item, let's go into the item class and see what we can override. So all of these functions are things that you can override here. Say you wanted to make a food item, you could override this function and return true. What we're going to do first is let's look for item use. This will be called whenever a player uses the item whilst looking in the air. Let's copy this function, go back to mod items, let's paste that in and mark it as an override. Now let's just add a log info, and let's just call example item 2 use. And then let's call the base function, because for now we don't really know what this returns. Let's do item use as passing the same parameters, and let's return this. Let's register it as a new item. Let's make it example item 2 equals ev.itemregistry.register item shared. And this time, instead of using the base class of item, let's use example item 2. Because we didn't change any of the constructor parameters, we can just pass in the same stuff again. But this time, we need to make sure that we use a different identifier. Let's do example item 2. Let's set an icon for this item as well. And let's use a stick. Let's build the mod. Now, if we go and hot reload our mod and we load in, we should now see that our new item is registered. We scroll down, here we go, example item 2. And whenever we right click with this item, it will log into the console, example item use. We can see that this function is also being ran twice, the first time on the server and the second time on the client. Let's add some logic to this. When the player uses the items, let's make the stack go down. So we can see the stack, let's go in survival mode. Let's see where it's 64. Instead of returning item use, let's return a new stack and let's include the item stack header. So we can do MC source common world item, and this will be item stack. So let's go into the item stack class and let's see what we can use. Let's decrement item m count. Go back in here. Let's do stack m count minus. Reload our mod and let's see if this works. Here we go. When we use the item, the stack went down. Now let's try making another function. Instead of use, let's override use on. This function right here. Copy this. Odd items. Let's override this function. Const override. And let's just log out the block that we click on. Let's log info pos. And let's also get the block that we click on. So this function is ran. It gives us the block position, but it does not directly give us the block. To get the actual block itself, we're going to need to go through the actor dot. Let's include the actor header, include MC/source common world actor. And let's do actor.get dimension block source const. This will give us a const block source. So this is essentially what holds all of the blocks. So now we can do region.get. We need to include the header for that. Include MC/source common world level block source. And we can do region.get block. So this will return a const block reference. Const block equals, and then let's log out the information about the block. You go do block.m legacy block, and then we'll do m name info.mfullname.get string. Let's leave the world and then hot reload. Now when we click on any block, we can see it logged the position and the block. We can see that if we hold down the button, then it will continuously run. Say you wanted to register a bunch of these example items. Instead of calling these builder methods each time, we can just directly add them to the constructor up here. So we can do that icon info here. We could just do stick and set it to 0. There are also a bunch of other ones. We can do set is glint to make it shiny. So now instead of doing all of this, we can just get rid of this and we can directly just call it. And now if we build the mod, we can now see our item is going to be shiny, and it will also have the diamond icon. The last thing we're going to do is add a custom icon. Instead of any image editor, create a 16:16 texture. Once you've made a texture, go into your mods folder, go in data, packs, rp textures items and then save your texture. Make sure you save it as a PNG. File name is important. Make sure that it only contains letters, numbers, and underscores. This will be the identifier for your texture. In my case, I'm using example item _2. Let's save as. Inside of Visual Studio, we can now use this texture. So we can use example item 2, and we need to put the namespace behind it. Let's rebuild the mod. And this time we're going to need to restart Minecraft. Some things in the resource pack aren't going to be reloaded at the moment when you leave the world, and that includes textures. So if we run Minecraft, join the world, we can now see that it has the custom texture. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. All of the stuff made today is going to be on the GitHub repository for the template mod. So if you have any issues, feel free to look at that and compare against what you've done. If you need any help past that, join the Amethyst Discord and I'm happy to help.